why am I drawing a blank on the word for not ancillary? Their additional coursework is needed in order to prepare American students for college entry. Remedial courses are needed at a higher rate, setting aside language barrier from kids coming from other countries. Kids graduating from K through 12 in the United States overwhelmingly, to a larger percent than virtually anywhere else on earth, need remedial coursework in order to be prepared to enter college. That's why a lot of these colleges, they love the foreign nationals. So the kids that come from abroad and study from the Middle East, South America, many of them are much more well prepared for college level coursework than their American counterparts.
So, I mean, we can use the Amish as a perfect example why succeeding isn't necessarily dependent on a college degree, number one. And so, why do you even go to
Yeah,
college?
it's a good question,
And
especially if it's like you know, we're not broadcasting, are we?
yes, we are streaming. We're not.
Okay.
Hang on, let me make sure our mics are
I'm
off.
gonna watch what I.
Okay, good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, Northeast Ohio. You are listening to the Voice of Geauga, where every morning, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., you will be informed, enlightened, and educated. Enlightened 5 days a week. And if you listen to our program on weekends through the live stream on Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook, you'll be educated all weekend long. So there's an opportunity to listen to us anywhere you are in the world by streaming. You can go to WINT Radio 101.5 on the radio, 1330 AM on the radio, or you can live stream from the WINT Radio website, or you can go to Voice of Geauga website, click the little microphone button and live stream from there. And so you have so many opportunities to listen to Voice of Geauga as you're getting your coffee in the morning, as you're getting your day started. And actually, if you were tuned in before the show started, you'd have heard Jonathan and I warming up and talking about the topic potentials for today. And we were bantering around 3 different topic ideas. By the way, tomorrow morning we're going to have Judge Engler on, or candidate Judge Engler. He's a judge, but candidate for the appeals court. He just filed a significant injunction against the state of Ohio. I guess it's against the state of Ohio to stop the constitutional amendment that was passed on abortion, because his take on that is that it interferes with parental rights, and we have no right to interfere with parental rights. That's a significant lawsuit. So we'll be talking to him tomorrow morning about that, his candidacy for appeals court judge, and whatever everybody wants to talk about. So if you want to call into this program, you can take part by calling us at 440-946-9468. As always, we have our Rumble Crowd crew up and running this morning, and they look like they're waking up. They said good morning. Good morning to all on Rumble. And I'm watching the stats. I'm not sure if we're going to be jittery this morning or not. Our internet service is a little bit on the slow side today. Maybe it didn't get its coffee. So, with that said, last night I was listening to the news, and we were talking about the talking heads. We're talking about the fact that the government now wants to fund education based on outcomes. So if you are getting a degree in um, on women's studies, in which you'll never get a job, well, that's not true. You might get a job at some goofy place, but if you get a job like that and you can't make more than the average high school student, then the federal government doesn't want to pay for that college education. So pick a different one, maybe a philosophy or whatever. Now, I'm a pure um, Jonathan, I'm not going to say the word, free enterprise guy. And so my view of the world is for government to get out of education, I mean, stop interfering with education. Education should be a free market thing, and educators educate, and the government's, get out of the business. They shouldn't be funding schools or subsidizing students going to schools. Colleges should be a free market thing. And so for us to interfere, that's really socialism soft, light, and it's nonsense because government never, I can't think of an example of a situation where government does a good job at anything. Anything they touch, they get screwed up. And so the reason our colleges are so screwed up is because of the government providing backing loans and a lot of other things. So I have a real issue
Kind of
with
like
this.
healthcare, huh?
Yeah, so very much like healthcare, and we can get into the healthcare situation at some point in time because that is so. Obamacare didn't work, and everybody's screaming and yelling, "Oh, our healthcare is not is all screwed up." Well, thank you, Obama, for screwing up our healthcare, because if it was free market, we wouldn't have the situation we've got today with goofed up healthcare. But that's another topic for another day. Today, should government be interfering and deciding which degrees? I mean, it's so complicated, Jonathan, because you might get a degree in computer science, which you would think you would do really, really well at. But if you got some slug that isn't motivated and wants to sit around on his duff and play games all day long, he's not going to make very much money either. And so it gets the whole topic gets so screwed up because it comes down to human nature and what people will do. There's tons of people that don't get educated and they're very successful. Bill Gates, for example, is one. He quit college to go do his Microsoft thing. And if you look at the Amish community, many in the Amish community are hugely successful and they don't have college degrees. And so this is where I would disagree with the Trump administration. Shocker. Ding, ding, ding. There's something I don't agree with the Trump administration on, that federal government should be interfering or paying for outcomes in colleges. So, with that said, I'll flip it over to you, Jonathan. Get your thoughts on it.
Well, there's a connected piece of the puzzle, and that's meritocracy. Let the best, let the winner win. If there is a free market environment where people can choose to go to a college or university of their choice and focus on an area of study that's meaningful and important to them, if we're left to meritocracy, which means simply may the best person win, and we're in an environment where that person is allowed to sink or swim on the merits of what they know and understand and what value they can bring to an employer, then fairly quickly, all of these ridiculous non-studies, these areas of studies, these degrees that are arguably nonsensical, they're not productive, would have phased out a long time ago. But we've had, unfortunately, a few decades now of government willingness to soak up and take huge amounts of our tax dollars and apply them to overpaying colleges and universities to generate these ridiculous degrees in nonsensical things, and like alien dance studies or whatever. There are all kinds of goofy things that people make fun of. Some of them are actual ridiculous degrees that don't get people anywhere. That without, with the possible exception of those kids then going on to become administrative assistant or a assistant professor or something, teaching more kids that same nonsensical area of study. It, if it's not subsidized by the government, it would have failed a long time ago, and the system would have corrected itself. So, in other words, we have subsidized failure. I am in agreement that there has to be a path forward for us as a society to figure out which degrees are productive and successful and lead to a productive addition to society, and which ones are just simply a 4 or 6 year filler for kids to go and party, eh, play video games, get high, do drugs, leave with a piece of paper that proves to be unsuccessful, unfruitful, and then we have angry kids entering society. Why is my, and I'm struggling for a reasonable but yet ridiculous example, why is my my degree in whatever underwater basket weaving, gosh, well, I spent $380,000 on this degree. How come I'm not successful now as an underwater basket weaver? It's because that doesn't exist in the real world. There are no people out there, no companies that actually need or want that. So all the angry kids that are coming out after 4 or 6 years or whatever of whatever it is they've been doing on college campuses, mostly it seems like partying, they are not prepared adequately for success in life. And I'm going to add one piece to that. I mentioned it before the show this morning, Skip, and that is um, that's the idea of actually. Hold on a second here. I've got Skip. You take it. I've got to address this message coming up.
Okay. Yeah, and Jonathan, I don't know if you're listening on the side, but
Yep.
this is where I think we totally need to get out of the college. It's not up to us. The free market will determine which classes survive and which ones don't. If you go get an underwater basket weaving um, degree, and then you go try to find a job, if you get 30 kids that have gone through underwater basket weaving and they don't get jobs, guess what? They're going to be coming back to the college and beating the college up, and pretty soon those classes aren't going to exist anymore. The free market will correct itself over time. And so
Yeah.
that's where the government needs to get out of it totally. Just let the free market exist. Let these colleges who have multi-billion-dollar endowments spend a little bit of their money, and get rid of a lot of the administrative staff that makes six-figure incomes while they're teaching our kids how to underwater basket weave or whatever. Get DEI studies or women's studies or whatever these stupid degrees are that are not productive, and get back to engineering and God forbid that I say this, law degrees or doctor's degrees or computer science degrees or something that actually serves our community. Not to say that philosophy, and I know we're coming up on a break, so philosophy and some of these
Yep.
other things aren't valuable to help grow a person as a human being, but they're not going to get you. They're not going to get you a paycheck. You're better off going to technical college. So with that said, I'm going to flip it over to you to take us into
Yep.
a break,
And we are
gentlemen.
coming up on a break. Remember, you can join the conversation either online, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook, or dial in 440-946-9468. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
Yeah, there's some great comments here. We can thank the DEI Industrial Complex for perpetuating the grievance studies programs. and yep, in colleges. And when we come back, I do want to touch on this need. I don't think we can overstate the importance of the need for remedial coursework in order for the average rank and file K through 12 diploma holder in the United States to enter college. These kids are not being prepared adequately in K through 12. That's clear.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that's true, and it's worse in some of the inner city schools where they don't have parents involved, um, and there's a lot of home, social issues and so on and so forth. Schools like West G, while not perfect, are better, and so we've got a real issue from a societal standpoint because the family is broken down. It's not anything to do with schools. It has more to do with where our society has gone into the sewer. And so that's a real issue. I'm going to reach out to our Rumble crowd. Do me a favor and just provide a comment on how smooth the program is. I'm getting some
30 seconds.
low
30 seconds.
low performance on my network statistics, and I'm just not sure how well we're coming across. I've tried to compensate a little bit, but just curious about them.
On my side, the video looks frozen on Rumble.
So yeah, it's dropping some frames, and
10 seconds.
I'd like to.
10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Today we're talking about government using our tax dollars to subsidize stuff. And a primary example is focusing on education. When we look at what passes for college degrees now, one of the things that occurs to me to bring into the conversation is the huge and very unfortunate need for what are called remedial courses. And that simply means that many students who get into college and are accepted are not prepared for college. They're not adequately intelligent. They're not adequately prepared for the coursework that's going to be presented for them. So they may need some catch-up work on mathematics, on English, and those sorts of things in order to be able to just simply be at a starting point that allows them to learn adequately in the courses that are required of them in college. It's called remedial coursework, and there's great evidence out there. I've been reading a lot about it in the past 5+ years that suggests that American students going to American colleges are behind many of our international brothers and sisters. So kids coming from other nations, in spite of the language barrier, in spite of a typical language barrier, I should say, our American K through 12 diploma holders are not on par with kids coming from South America, Middle East, many African nations. Look specifically at Nigeria. Nigeria has major problems, but education isn't one of them. They hold education to a high standard. So many Nigerian kids are coming here leaps and bounds ahead of K through 12 graduates in education. And so, unfortunately, what that's led to in the pursuit of dollars and economies is a lot of U.S. colleges leaning toward accepting foreign students because they're better prepared to get into the coursework and successfully graduate with some degree. Whether or not the degree is meaningful or leads to something productive, frankly, I don't think colleges care. Colleges aren't in the business of making sure that the kids who graduate move on successfully into a career path that is launched from that diploma. Their business is making money off of the courses themselves. So what is it that leads to the American students being far behind? And to Skip's point, is it really the job of our government to pick and choose which are the successful paths and which aren't? shouldn't it be left entirely to a free market economy, into an economy that hires and rewards for kids that can productively, successfully add something to their business endeavor and their job of choice?
When I was I had went into the military, spent 9 years in the military. But when I went into the military, it wasn't a choice. I got drafted, and so now I was kind of being directed by the military. They didn't give me a whole lot of choice. They stuck me into a field, and I learned what there was to do about that. But ultimately, I got out of the Air Force as an air traffic controller. They trained me to be an air traffic controller, and so I became an air traffic controller in the FAA. There's a whole nother story to that. And then President Reagan fired me and 13,000 other people. Unlike the flyer that went out, it wasn't just me, it was 13,000 people who were in the union. And now I was faced as an adult with the choice: what do I do? And so I went to college. I went to the college of that was there where I was at in Green Bay, Wisconsin at the time. And so I went into the counseling office and I said, "What are the top careers? What's the hot careers right now?" And so they listed accounting. Accounting is always in the top uh, list of jobs that are out there, and this new thing called computer science. And so I said, that looks good to me. I didn't go in and say, oh, I want to get a women's studies or a DEI or a philosophy major, knowing as an adult that I wasn't going to make any money doing that, or a history major, like my uncle Fritz was a history major. So I made a choice logically. Now, the counselors at the college were very liberal, and they were trying to steer me into, well, what do you feel like? How is it that you want to realize your full potential in being a human being? And I said, no, I don't care about any of that. Tell me which jobs get paid the most and which ones are most popular and I'm going to get hired at. That's kind of the mentality that college students should have. And we're, relating this to Geauga County. I think, maybe I'm wrong. People should call us at 440-946-9468. Jonathan, it appears to me that everybody agrees with us, by the way, because if they didn't agree with us, they'd be calling us. But so we must.
Yeah,
I
they
feel
can call
pretty.
and argue,
I
tell
feel.
us we're wrong.
I feel pretty good about the fact that we our take on the world everybody agrees with. So I feel good about that. But with that said, in Geauga County, we're actually kind of special in this way. We have a whole community of Amish, and the Amish aren't really college bound. They're very pragmatic in their view of the world. So they get through high school, and in many cases, not all the way through high school, but they know, either through their fathers or through interest or through some other means, they decide to go into a trade, to become a farmer, to whatever they are going to be. And many, many of them are very successful. Some of them open businesses. We've got a scrapyard in Middlefield, which is very successful. We've got a number of lumber processing companies that are very successful. Cabinet companies are very successful. A lot of contractors that are teams of Amish guys that go out and do contracting, and do building and framing and all that kind of stuff. And so they do quite well financially and take care of their families and so on and so forth. Isn't that what it is about at the end of the day? And so this self-realization goofiness may make you feel good after spending $500,000, but if it doesn't get you a job, and likewise, there are many parents now in Geauga County which are sending their kids to technical school to be welders and to go into some trade, plumbing or building or whatever the case happens to be. That's a much more
Good.
pragmatic
We
view
need
of the
more of
world.
that.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
this whole college experience has gotten twisted around because of the progressive mindset. It's about self-realization. Yeah, horsepucky. It's about getting yourself skills to have a life. And if in that course of that, you have some humanities studies to round out your rough edges and so forth. I took some of those humanity courses, and it didn't seem to work for me. I didn't really get too rounded out, but
Really, Skip.
yeah.
So there's some great comments in Rumble we've got one comment here. We can thank the DEI industrial complex for perpetuating the grievance studies programs in colleges. And to your point, there is a comment here that we need more tech schools teaching people how to be plumbers, electricians, builders, auto mechanics, etc. So some of those tech schools have uh, great financial help, and some of the kids that are leaving those have little or no debt, and they're jumping right into high-paying jobs just after a couple of years. Very different than some of these, 4, 5, 6 year college degrees. People leaving with $300,000 worth of debt that they have to work at paying off for the next 10, 15 years. They're behind the eight ball instantly. And if they happen to graduate from college with an undesirable degree that doesn't actually do anything for them, they have the double negative of a degree that doesn't get them a successful career path, but adds a huge debt load that they have to work for years and sometimes decades to pay off. We've got a couple of great comments here from Nana Sherrill. I feel kids could go to community college first. American students are educated on outcome basis. And there's one other comment here. I suggested the reading The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. That is a spectacular and very important book. The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Ronald Reagan said, federal government has no business in public education. If we had it to do all over again and there were a time machine, if we could go back and remove that impetus. Not everybody knows this, but it took several attempts for some bad actors to implement government-run education in the United States. Prior to that, it was tremendously successful, and kids were actually properly educated. Now we have massive money flowing through schools, just unbelievable, vast sums of money flowing through schools, paying huge, small armies. It's like social welfare. Small armies of people, mostly on the administrator side, to shuffle paperwork around and do administrative mumbo jumbo with a six-figure income. And the result is, unfortunately, in the United States, lackluster. And one more from Nana Sherrill. The Amish teach their boys to build at a very young age. They teach their kids farming, cooking, sewing, etc. The Amish do lifestyle skills learning. That's important too. And I'm going to spin this in a little bit of a different direction because I'm hot on education. I graduated from Shaker Heights, and I have stayed in touch with. I know we're coming up on a break here. I'm going to sign us off for the middle break in about 20 seconds. But I want to touch briefly on some of my classmates, some of the people that I've graduated from Heights schools with have found their way to struggling financially and as far as competence in general life skills. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
Yeah, I've actually I've stayed friends with a couple of the folks I graduated with. It's not all of them. Some have gone on to very successful lives and successful careers. But even some of those that have gone on to do okay or good things on a career path, I'll tell you what, and it was I'm mixed on the experience that I had from Shaker schools. It did give me a good education. It was, I think, prior to an unfortunate dropping off and loss of focus on core curriculum, core competency skills. But as far as mechanical aptitude and basic life skills, I know some of the people that I graduated with, I think they might struggle to change a light bulb. I'm sorry to put it in those terms, but there's a helplessness that comes with this hoity-toity. I'm this, how do I want to put it? Holier than thou education stance. And especially a lot of the kids that end up going through these prestige K through 12 schools go to an Ivy League, uh, really expensive college, and they get out. You ask them, they don't even know that an oil change needs to take place in your car, or like how electricity works. It's mind-boggling to me and frustrating. Those basic life skills are tremendously important and hugely valuable.
So I can give that to my dad because I got lots of life skills growing up because I had to deal with things. I helped my grandson over the weekend whose car battery died. He had no idea how to jump a battery. And so I gave him a little bit of an education. That's unfortunately and then not all kids are that way. My on one of my families, my grandkids are a little on the um, I want to say the liberal side because they've been taken care of and not allowed to fall down and break their skin their knees kind of a thing. But that's not entirely true. But one of my granddaughters is now working as an intern at Lincoln Electric and learned to weld. And so that's pretty cool. She's actually in an engineering program, very pragmatic about her college education, and I'm very proud of her. She's actually going to represent the United States in the triathlon next September. And so we're going to go watch her kick butt in the world in the triathlon.
Wow, triathlon.
Yeah, pretty
That's impressive.
significant, but it is, and so you can get out of college what you want, and in many cases it can give you an education to help you to succeed at what you're doing, but you have to approach it from a different mindset and not from this I'm just going to education to go to college to have fun and drink and socialize and your experience or your understanding of what going to college about is just a party. That's not going to work.
30 seconds, gentlemen,
So
30 seconds.
Yeah, and a lot of kids are drawn to those colleges with the party atmosphere.
well,
Just
there's
hoping for
just an expectation that you have to go to college. So when you go into high school, you get told, "Oh, well, when you go to college, or you know, which college are you going to choose?" There's like an understanding, an expectation. You're automatically going to go to college, and maybe that's not what they should be doing.
10 seconds,
So
10 seconds.
welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Today we're talking about whether or not government should use our taxpayer dollars to get involved in things like education. And off of that, I sort of steered us into a little bit of a tangent, but it's important, it's connected. And that has to do with basic competence and life skills. During the break, Skip mentioned the basic, simple idea of jumping a car battery. If you have a young adult driving a vehicle who doesn't know the basics of using jumper cables or one of those fancy new devices that's a standby battery to give your car enough power to jump itself, or there are all kinds of connected or related similar topics. People that might know how to uh, repair a broken spot on drywall, or fix a door that's not hanging or closing properly, or for heaven's sakes, replace a flat tire. Those basic life skills are frequently lacking. And when you have an environment where that is, I don't know if I want to say engineered, but if it is viewed as and created as a desirable, the more helpless you are, the more help you get, then it creates an incentive to be helpless. There's a great comment that I saw during the break here. Um, I think lots of kids who feel unfulfilled emotionally and spiritually are drawn to those find yourself degrees. Find yourself is in quotes, and that is really unfortunate. So if you have an environment that is not fulfilling, that doesn't prepare kids adequately for life, and I illustrated that through mentioning the need for remedial coursework, then you end up with a whole lot of emotionally deprived, undeveloped, emotionally immature children who might view college as just a party environment, a really, really expensive party environment. And maybe what we're ending up with through government subsidies is an emotionally immature, unprepared, overly degreed, lackluster society. You get these young adults who are coming out with their $300,000 college debt with their degree that gets them nowhere, that are undeveloped and unfulfilled because, like Skip's example, he was talking about how he went in and spoke with an education counselor who was trying to steer him toward some sort of feel good path in life. We need, as a society, to have at least some number of skilled and competent people to run things. Let's think about it. There's a next generation. What happens when they're running things? If they have fists full of useless degrees, huge amounts of debt, and and years of grievance studies, but can't jump a car battery or put air in a tire, how are we going to function as a society? And there's a related topic, and I know this is a huge hot button. Somebody put something in the Rumble chat about H-1B visas. And there are people out there who are saying that American kids aren't adequately prepared. They're not suited for a work environment. They can't do things. And if American kids can't do things, who can? And what do we do to fix an environment that is leading to it? That is clearly, in my book, an absolutely broken K through 12 system, especially in Ohio. How do we get kids on a better path, point them toward more successful uh, life choices, and fill them with skills, the competence, the can do attitude, and the wherewithal to know that they can accomplish things in life? Some of it we've talked about on this show before. Bring back speech and debate. Bring back gym and physical activity. Bring back common, basic educational principles. Teach the basics, the core traditional concepts of education. Get the woke stuff out of the schools. That's our starting point. And again, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. These bad ideas may have started on college campuses as a result of the 60s, but they're down market now and they're in K through 12, all the way down into pre K, pushing these helpless, these narratives of feel goodery virtue signaling onto K through 12 students. These are the ones that we need to right the ship. We need to bring it back to meritocracy, give kids the power, the motivation, the encouragement, and tell them that they can accomplish. Stop telling them that they can't. Tell them that they can accomplish and put them on a better path toward things that can provide for themselves and family and for their future.
So I see a
Aren't you?
comment out here from I'm not going to say who. A 19-year-old granddaughter is graduating cum laude from Willoughby and is planning to go to Cincinnati College to study to be a physician's assistant. There are a lot of people who guide their kids and to navigate the goofiness that's going on in our education system. I believe that, but I'm going to kind of go in a conspiratorial direction a little bit. There's so many factors that go into our education system. One of which is, I think, and it's intentional, I believe, and this comes out of our government. This is why you need to get government out of things. There was a comment made last night about Marxism and the fact and what Marxism is, and Marxism has entered into our colleges. We have a lot of Marxist socialists. Look at the stupid. I can't even come up with the right verbology to talk about people like Mandami and some of the Marxists that are being elected by I can't believe the populations that elect these people. But when you look at Marxism and communism, what it is, it's about dividing people. Karl Marx, Mao,
Yep.
Castro, you name the Marxist. It's about dividing people into camps so you can pit them against one another. And the useful idiots that go along with that and play that game are help to enable all of that. Well, that's being taught in our colleges, and I think that was intentional. The government got involved with funding colleges so we can fund some of these stupid programs having to do with race relations or whatever the case happens to be, and that just creates division, not unity. And I think that was an intentional thinking. Marxists got into college and hey, how are we going to get more kids into college so we can teach them about all these Marxist principles and so on and so forth. And so I think there's some part of that. But there's, at the core of many colleges, and it depends on what college you go to. Harvard and Yale are different from Kent State or from, Bowling Green or some of our more local colleges because they have those core skills that they still teach, and people have a choice to get into some of these other programs that aren't going to take them anywhere. So you really need some guidance. I was a guidance counselor when I was going through college. I was an adult and I needed to subsidize my income. So I actually got hired into the counseling office. And so I influenced some kids in what direction to go. And I can tell you there's a lot of philosophy and humanities studies teachers that were not happy with me because I wasn't funneling kids into, you know, trans and gender whatever studies. I sat through that class and said, "What the heck is this about?" I did get an A in it though. But anyway, so yeah, I think there's a lot. It's a multifaceted thing. But I give the parents in Geauga County credit because most of the people I see, not all, most of the people I see are pretty pragmatic and smart about this, and they're guiding and helping their kids to make good decisions. And sometimes kids make dumb decisions, so be it. They don't, like one of my sons went to Bowling Green and ended up partying all the time, quit school and went into the Air Force. And now was very
Hmm.
successful, just retired, and was very happy with his military career. But college was not for him, and so and he
Well, good
realized,
thing the military whipped them into shape.
oh, they did. They straightened him right out. That's the one thing I'll say about the military. You go to the military, and it'll get your head straight, and or you won't survive. And so,
Or
but
you'll wash out. Yeah.
yeah,
We're coming up on a break. I want to pause to recognize the sponsors of this show: Chardon VFW, Middlefield VFW, and the American Legion of both Chardon and Newberry, and Red EFT. Call Red EFT, the Arborists, at 440-850-4968. There's an important website that I want to make sure that everybody is aware of, and that is Victims of Communism. Go to Victims of Communism and share it with your kids, because what we're talking about here, and some of the bad stuff that has been invading college university campuses for some years now, really from the 60s, it's given breathing room when you have government subsidy because it takes out the pressure to be successful. It takes out the pressure to find for yourself or via a guidance counselor the need for observable metrics and success. When you have a bunch of government money flowing in, then and you have the expectation of more government money and more government subsidies, then you can do all sorts of hogwash and nefarious bad things, like advocating for Marxist values. But to be clear, it's no longer just on college campuses. That is pervasive in K through 12. If you look at ed tech and 4 different recognized Ohio ed tech companies, they are rife with Marxist, anti American, anti West values. And that's a bad thing. We need to get rid of that and get back to meritocracy. We're going to continue to cover this topic when we come back on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
So Stu, who is
Well, it
following,
looks like we've.
there's a guy by the name of
What's
Stu. There's a guy by the name of Stu on Facebook. People can't see him because they're on a Rumble for the most part. But now Stu's not happy with us. And so he's following
Oh,
us. He's been following us now for a little while. Good morning, Stu.
oh,
But he's
what does Stu not like?
I'm not sure exactly what he doesn't like, so I'll reach out to Stu. I don't want to post a comment because when I put it on Facebook as an example, it stays there forever, and I have to go out and get rid of it. So on a temporary basis. So Stu, if you're listening, we're not sure exactly why you're throwing up all over us, but apparently you don't like the
Oh,
conversation about.
yeah, Stu's using the. It took me a minute to refresh and find that. I do see that Stu is using the emoji of somebody throwing up.
So yeah,
So
I mean,
I have no idea what
it would
that relates
it
to.
would like
But
to know more. I mean, I love it when people disagree with us. I just don't know why he's disagreeing. So Stu, if you're listening, then tell us why you're throwing up all over us. Are you a Marxist? Are you? I'm curious. Go ahead, Jonathan.
yeah, I just exhausted all of my curiosity a long time ago. But there's so many people. Like I see comments when I check on Voice of Geauga. There are people, a handful of people that
30
dislike the
seconds, 30
newspaper,
seconds.
and I've yet to see anybody list a reason. It's just yucky. It's all emotion, which goes to a comment that I made earlier today. I think it was on Meanwhile in Geauga that apparently for some people emotion trumps logic and
10
reason.
seconds. 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Feel free to join the conversation at 440-946-9468, and that includes anybody that may disagree. We ventured into a little sideline conversation during the break about emotion versus logic and reason. And periodically, I see on social media as we work our way through different topics and discuss different things, and the that time when the Voice of Geauga paper drops and fills mailboxes all across Geauga County. Occasionally, there's a little ripple of a few people out there that respond negatively. The odd thing, and it's pervasive and consistent, and I think just about 100%. I have yet to see anybody list a reason. There's no logic behind it. It's just pure emotion. They feel unhappy about something and feel the need to hop on social media and vent. So they just sort of dump emotion and vitriol. And there's no way that I've found to compel them to express their viewpoint. What is it specifically that you don't like or disagree with? It just met with more emojis and dead air. So anyway, that's a side note. We ventured into that a little bit during the break. There's a great comment here. Uh, while we certainly have an issue with our schools preparing kids, the H-1B taking jobs that plenty of folks here are qualified for, and that's a key point. There's an important objective that we have to put ourselves on the path toward, and that is recognizing what it takes to create a generation of skilled, competent, capable, enthusiastic, preferably America loving kids. How do we make the next generation of young adults ready to enter the workforce that have the life skills, the competence, the can do attitude, and the wherewithal to do what it takes to make society move forward? That whole dust up, that whole big hotbed issue of H-1B visas, there are people, and again, this goes back to speech and debate. Imagine for a moment you are asked to enter the debate from either or both sides of that argument. Could you make the argument that American kids are not competent, they're not skilled, they're not ready, and they're not capable? There's another comment that somebody made that American kids, if you go into a drive-through or stop off at a restaurant or buy some product somewhere, that kids are not able to make change for currency. If you give them a $20 bill and your product that you've purchased is $11.39, how many kids out there are able to give you proper change? That is a rudimentary basic skill. If we are not teaching those things, then it stands to reason we're going to have a generation of kids that are not capable of doing it. And if we don't make it a part of K through 12 education as a starting point, we're going to end up with a generation of kids that can't read cursive, can't read a clock with hands on it, don't understand geography or our history or even basic government. And it's come up recently in a few examples. There are people that we've elected into office in the United States that are elected representatives who can't express, they do not understand the basic principles of American government. They don't know, for instance, that we have three branches of government. And they don't know the roles of those government entities, those branches of government. That's a major problem. And getting back to the root of today's conversation, I believe that that is a direct result of government subsidizing education. If you have it subsidized, then you take away the need for it to be successful. And there's a great example of that in energy. The moment government stepped in, and healthcare is another great example. The moment government steps in and says, that's okay, we'll just collect huge amounts of taxpayer dollars and we'll make everything better by spreading money around. The moment that begins is the moment that's the beginning of the death of something, of the thing that government is seeking to subsidize. It's happened in education, it's happened in healthcare, it's happening to a very large extent in energy as government steps in. Look at the failed energy initiatives, this green energy push, and it's still going on. You still have these multi-billion-dollar projects that have not that resulted in like 4 kilowatts, enough to power your laptop, for billions of dollars. More windmills produced in China, more solar panels, more buying up and absorbing farmland to destroy it with these green energy initiatives. They fail. The same thing has happened to education, but people get rich along the way. So,
Part of the problem, Jonathan, and I saw it when I was traveling internationally, even in communist China, the parents were extremely disciplined about getting their kid or making education important. Part of the problem with the
yep,
generation, I don't know about the current generation, but the past Z generation, was when they show up for work, they have all these expectations. They want to be treated special because their parents always treated them special. And, they don't want to work 8 hours. They want to have, all these social things going on, a pool table at the workplace, and, want to be able to take all these breaks. So there's a good reason, and I saw this because of the industry I was in, for H-1B visas, not across the board on an exception basis, but there are certain specific skills that we need because those are not being taught in our colleges or for whatever the reason. So you bring those specific skills, or somebody might have 30 years doing, developing rocket technology or something, and we may not have that specific technology here in the US. So you bring that talent to this country so that you have that to fill. But unfortunately, part of the education process, when I was going to college, or maybe it was just because of the military experience or whatever, in order to succeed, I had to get really disciplined. I was working two jobs when I was going through college and carrying a full course load. I got through college in 3 years because I had to. I had kids that I had to take care of, and a former wife. Unfortunately, my first wife left me when I got fired as a controller, and there was a whole emotional story that wrapped around that. But it motivated me, and I worked really, really hard to succeed. We're lacking some of that drive in our kids today, and they think people should just hand them stuff, and they should get the next promotion just
yeah.
because they showed up, and so forth. And so that's part of the dilemma we've got with our current education system. And I see it's coming up on the end
Skip,
of the show.
I
So
think that I think that stems directly from this manufactured notion that handouts are freely available.
Yep.
And it goes back to that expression from Margaret Thatcher. Socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. There's maybe a great test subject in Springfield, Ohio. Remember Springfield just a couple of years ago when everyone made fun of Trump because he was calling out Springfield because of allegations that I think it was the Haitians. Haitians were imported. A very large number of Haitians created a Haitian community in Springfield. The argument there locally is that all of the established existing American citizens in Springfield were incapable. They couldn't do the jobs, and so they needed to import all these people from Haiti. Apparently, that the argument goes. So these people from Haiti got huge subsidies from the government to live, to feed themselves. They got food stamps, etc. And meanwhile, the American citizens were left high and dry. That is, I think, a good case study. Can the Americans, the existing American citizens in that community, could they do those jobs? Are they capable? I think the answer is yes. This has been another episode of Voice of Geauga. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Tune in tomorrow as Judge Engler comes back on to join us. Have a great day, everyone.